Hello, everybody. Sorry, long time no hear or see, but I live and I can speak again. Yay! Because at this rate, I was hoping it would come back soon, and it did finally. Yay! And on top of that, or else, we were going to have to do this lecture through interpretive dance, and I don't think you entirely want to watch me emulate having a seizure, or Monty would have had to teach it. Except he doesn't talk much, so. So let's go ahead and start talking today about protists, because that's kind of where we're at. We got done talking about viruses, which aren't alive, archaea and bacteria, which are definitely alive. And now we're moving up in complexity into archaea, which is a fascinating dimension. So let's do this. There we go. And present. And there I am. And Monty will be wandering around. So there we go. All right. So protists. So this is where we finally leave the prokaryotic world behind, and we're entering into the eukaryotic world. Now, kingdom Protista, or the protists, are kind of like the junk drawer of biology. And I mentioned that in the intro, if you read the intro to this week, even though it's like the end of the week. Happy Friday. Here's the lecture I owed you on Monday. But anyway, trying to get back on the horse again. Not in the horse. Don't get on the horse. They don't like that. I know. I was raised on a horse farm. Literally, I was raised in a barn. So if you ever ask, were you raised in a barn? The answer is yes. So, yeah, protists are kind of the place we stick things that we can't really stick in any other kingdom or any other area. They're eukaryotic, but a lot of them are these creatures that are plant-like, but they're not plants because they have some animal mechanisms to them. Some of them are like animals, but they're not animals. They have some animal behaviorisms, but they're not animals. And some of them are fungal-like, but they're not fungi. So this is kind of these weirdos that have come about, and we just don't know entirely how to classify them. So we gave them their own kingdom, which, like I said, most of us lovingly refer to this kingdom as the junk drawer of biology, because we just kind of toss them in there and go, yeah, you're so weird, you get your own kingdom. Well, you're welcome. Isn't that nice? So, yeah. So that's why we're going to kind of talk about an interesting sprinkling amongst these guys. Also, we're not going to hit them too terribly hard, and it's a shame, but at the same time, we've got to move on to the fungi, even though your book has the plant kingdom first, which kind of blows. I see where they're coming from, but yeah, I feel like talking about fungus next week. So anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about this. Now, again, I have this video here. I believe we watched it earlier in the semester, but I'd like to remind you of the size comparison. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. And I have it muted just for, niceness. But remember what we were talking about. So again, here we are with the viruses, which are very, very tiny. And I finally got my viruses back. Here's my coronavirus. Isn't it cute? And here's my Ebola. Finally stole it back from my son. He. So there's the flu. And there's rabies. Remember, these are viruses. They're not alive. They're very super tiny. Our friend, the bacteriophage. We talked about him at length. Yay, bacteriophage. Smallpox. Which looks like a funky raisin, if you ask me, but hey. And now we've jumped. Now we've gone to bacteria. Remember, our prokaryotes, these are alive. They are cells. They do not have a nucleus, though, so no nucleus. Our friend E. coli, lactobacillus, which lets us digest milk. Now we've jumped to the eukaryotes. So here's a mix up in here, and this is what we're going to talk about. Red blood cells are obviously in us larger ones in the animal kingdom, but there's yeast, there's a skin cell, there's a sperm cell. Oh, by the way, I found I got a sperm. Yeah, my husband got me a whole ton of these, and I finally pulled them all out. Pollen, a neuron. Look, I got one too. It's brain cell. Yay! A human egg, and I do have one of those as well. Ta-da! Isn't that cute? Now, this is where we start hitting protists. So I'll pause right here. Here's a euglena hanging out. We're going to definitely be talking about euglenas. I love these guys. Diatoms, I mentioned it last time. They're beautiful. They make silicate shells around themselves. Paramecium, we'll be talking about them. Our friend the amoeba, we'll be talking about them. And so this is just an introductory to you. And there's a water bear. Again, showing you we have now hit the eukaryotes, all the ones, the euglena, the diatoms, the amoeba, all of those, the paramecium, all are eukaryotes. They now have a nucleus. They now have organelle bound membranes. They now have that's interesting. Sorry, my hands just amused me for a minute. Anyway, and so all of these things, so we're talking about creatures that are way more complex and way bigger than, say, the bacteria that we're just talking about. And they can come. No, I don't want to play the thing of yin and yang. Boy, go, shoo. So protists belong to Kingdom Protista, which is actually mostly unicellular. So these guys like to live alone. And they don't fit in the other kingdoms, as I was saying earlier. So they are cells with nuclei surrounded by a nuclear envelope with nuclear pores, just like what you'd find in us and plants and fungi. They have mitochondria. We're going to talk about where the mitochondria came from. That's really important because this is a big jump that this kingdom took that you didn't see in bacteria. They have a cytoskeleton full with microtubules and microfilaments. So we talked about that last semester. They have flagella and cilia, and they have it in the strangest of places. So we're going to get into all that fun stuff. They have chromosomes organized by histones. Again, this was stuff that you should have talked about last semester. And they go through mitosis, but some of them also go through binary fission. So it really depends. Sometimes they can do one, or they can do both. They can do one or the other. It gets interesting. We'll get into that in a minute. They can do sexual reproduction. So this is finally where we introduce sex. Oh my God. But it's not, again, the, oh wow, woohoo sex. I'm just saying it's the yay. And we'll get into that in a minute. And some of them have a cell wall and some of them don't. Like I said, there's ones that are like animal-like, but they have a cell wall. There's ones that are plant-like, but they don't. It's interesting. So we'll get into this. Matty, don't go there. Anyway, he was getting hooked on the table. Don't do that. You get hurt. Anyway. So now, if you remember, Earth did not have molecular oxygen way back when. Remember, the sun was a deadly laser, and we didn't have oxygen, period. It was a whole bunch of gases that, excuse me, the tickle is still there. I keep trying to get the tickle good go. No, anyway. So organisms living in the ocean had to figure out other ways to survive other than eating that delicious liquid soup coming out of the earth. So it wasn't until someone, and I mean some bacteria, figured out that, hey, if I go up and get hit by this deadly laser in the sky, I get the energy to take carbon dioxide and water and go boosh, and turn it into glucose, and then this weird thing called oxygen. And I make a ton of oxygen doing this, so I just breathe it out. I use some of it to make, ATP, but it goes around like that. It's actually kind of interesting. So over time, this led to a curious happening. in the fact that there's bacteria, and again, it was a bacteria eat bacteria kind of world. Still is technically, if you think about it. Dang, tickle, go away. I could need to teach. Anyway. So there was a weird thing, though, that occasionally two cells would get together and one would eat the other, but they wouldn't digest it. It would just let it live inside of it. And this is known as endosymbiosis, where one cell engulfs another cell, but both cells survive and they kind of merge, but not really. And it's for both of their benefits. So this happened in two places, and that is the mitochondria and the chloroplasts. Now, in animal cells and plant cells, both animal and plants and fungi have a ton of mitochondria. Mitochondria have their own DNA. We get our mitochondria from our mothers. Literally, when we're forming, our own cells need energy. So the mother donates mitochondria from her cells to you when you were in the womb forming. And we can actually trace matriarchal DNA through the mitochondrial DNA back through matriarchal lines to technically a mitochondrial Eve. So it's interesting. So we know the mitochondria used to be a bacteria, and that he said, hey, I'll make you all the ATP you want if you protect me and feed me glucose and oxygen. And the bigger cell said, oh yeah, yes, come on inside, man. I will protect you and I will give you glucose and oxygen forever and ever. And the mitochondria said, sweet. And the big cell said, sweet. And ever since we've had mitochondria. Same thing with chloroplasts. The chloroplast went up to a bigger cell and said, don't eat me, don't eat me. How about we merge? I will give you all the glucose and oxygen you could ever want for your friend, the mitochondria. As long as you give me sunlight and water and protect me from other bacteria from eating me. And the big cell said, dude, I am so down for that. And so both mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own DNA. And that's where they came from. That's where we think they were. They were bacteria that basically said, wait, don't eat me, don't kill me. How about we merge? And the big cell said, oh, dude, that's a sweet deal. Let's go. So now what they actually said to each other back then, I don't know, because, it isn't like you could sit there and go, what are you saying, bacteria? Actually, this isn't a bacteria. This is chlamydia. Hello. Here's a bacteria. Here's the Black Death. He's adorable. Yeah, you can't hear what they're saying, unfortunately. It would make life so much easier if things could talk to you. Also annoying. Could you imagine getting into an argument with your cat? Anyway, we're not going to watch this video. We're going to watch that. Just goes over. No. This is Bozeman science. I love him so, but my knockoff. This is him talking about endosymbiosis, which I just talked about. Yes, my knockoff Brad Pitt science person. I love you, but not right now. So anyway, so symbiosis is the major thing that I really, really, really want you to kind of get in this group, in this kind of area right here, because that's a big step. That's a big step. So, characteristics of prokaryotes, cell structure. They're weird as they can be. They're unicellular. Some of them are multicellular. We will be talking about those bad boys and how I was tortured with them in grad school. Actually, no, not grad school, undergrad. Ugh. And some get huge, some look like slime, some literally look like a dog vomited on something. And actually that's one of their nicknames. Slime molds are weird. They can either have animal-like cell membranes or plant-like cell walls, or even shells that are silica-based, like diatoms. Metabolism, they can either be heterotrophic or autotrophic. Remember, heterotrophic needs to eat things. Like I just ate lunch, I'm heterotroph. Autotrophic means you're plant-like, so therefore you can use sunlight with your chloroplasts. Those are known as photoautotrophs. Some of them can be chemotrophs, but depends on what's going on. Most of them are heterotrophic or autotrophic. Chemotrophs, not so much in this group. They can be mixotrophs, which can do either. That's why, like I said, some of these guys are in this group because they don't fit in animal and they don't fit in plant, because they literally they literally hang out, and it's like if the sun goes in or they go somewhere dark, they're like, oh, I'll just switch to being heterotroph. And then when the sun comes out or they get access to sunlight, they go, oh, I'll switch to being an autotroph. Yeah, plants and animals can't flip-flop like that. So motility, so most of these guys are moving around. Honestly, if we were in class face to face, I actually have a cool thing. We'd go out to our lovely pond lake swamp and go catch some, because right now there's a ton of them and it's warming up and they're all coming out and reproducing, which is what you can kind of smell as you walk across the bridge. You can smell that algae. At least I can. Because I've smelled a lot of algae. You might be going, why do you smell algae? And it's like, because I'll get to that story in a minute. Anyway. So they use flagella, cilia, pseudopods, like amoebas do. I love talking about amoebas. They can move towards or away a stimulus, which is fun trying to chase them around on a slide. If you make a wet slide and try to chase those little guys around, some of them love light, and you'll get to see them because they come right to the light. And some of them hate light, and you have to chase them around when in the microscope, which is a pain. So this is called taxis. So literally, if you think taxi means you know you get somewhere to move, yeah, taxis. So phototaxis, in other words, it means like photo means light, taxis means to move, so therefore it moves towards light, because he's one of those guys that needs light to photosynthesize. And there's some that hate light, so they run away from light. Now, their life cycles are as wide and varied as they are. Most of them are asexual. And as I was mentioning earlier, they can either go through binary fission, like a prokaryote, or they can go through mitosis. It's just depending on what species we're talking about right here. Some of them also have sexual reproduction, and some of them can switch depending on the environment. And some of them are really cool because they do something where they go into a resting stage called cysts. And they literally just turn themselves into a little hard watertight ball. And they're in that protective resting stage until the environment can support them coming back out and living again. Yeah, it sounds very similar to what we were learning about prokaryotes last week. So, yeah, they can dry out and hang out for a while. Habitats. These guys pretty much all live in some kind of aquatic environment. Most of them freshwater, a lot of them marine, damp soil, even snow. We have found them in snow. We have actually found them frozen. If you ever wondered why scientists go and freeze their posteriors off when they go down to Antarctica or, up north to the Arctic and take those snow cores, we've found these guys hanging out in the snow, just like, hey man, what's up? So, they can get anywhere as long as there's water, they're there. Now, several protists, unfortunately, are parasites that can infect animals and plants. A few protists live on dead organisms or their wastes and contribute to breaking things down. Some of them live, interestingly, as on plant roots, and we're going to talk about them a lot. We're going to talk about them here, and we're going to talk about them even more in the plant kingdom when we get to the plant kingdom. Monty, aren't you excited? He's so excited. He's just sitting on my keyboard right now. Anyway. All right, there's 6 super groups that we pretty much break this kingdom down into. So I'm going to start right here in the middle because, I'm random like that. So the amoebozoa. So this is basically your amoebas and slime molds, which if you ever garden, you've seen a slime mold. I know, I've seen slime molds. They pop up in my garden sometimes. They don't really do anything bad. They just hang out, grow, die, and that's it. They really don't do much. They just look like somebody had an interestingly colored vomit in the garden, and you're like, what is that? I even got, like I said, my husband's gotten me so many. See, I have a little amoeba that has a rose. It's on my keys. I also have penicillin. Penicillin. Mm. Yeah, giantmicrobes.com. I have way too much fun with that website. All right, moving on. Archaeplastidia. So these are land plants, green algae and red algae. Oh, algae. Okay, I'll tell you the story. So when I was taking biology too, this exact course, in fact, I took it at Western Carolina University, and they try to weed you out hardcore. At least that's how they used to do it back in the day. And one of the lab tests, I kid you not, you'd walk into the lab and there were 30 microscopes, and each and every one had a different type of algae under the microscope. And your test was to go around, look at each and every microscope, and write down what species of algae that was. Yeah. Aren't you glad I don't make you do that? Because oh my, no. I don't even have the brain for that. I didn't have the brain for it then. I kind of passed with a C. It wasn't my best. But it is they use that class as to weed out the people that just don't have the chops for going into biology as a biology major. So there's a lot of watershed classes like that. Anatomy and physiology is kind of one for nursing, and anything you wanting to do with humans and whatnot. First semester I go hard on people. Make them question if they really want to do this or not. Because it is true. I mean, if it's just easy sailing and then all of a sudden you get into a doctorate program and it just kicks your rear end. Again, there's moments where it's like, shouldn't I in life? And that's like, it shows your determination and your resilience in moving through. So if you're wondering why some professors are pretty rough on you, some of them are just words I can't say right now. And sometimes it's because we're just trying to see if you've got the drive to survive. So anyway, so yeah, that's my painful algae story, which is why it's like, there's, yeah, definitely over 30 types of algae. What do I remember from that test? I remember the brown algae. I remember 2 of the red algae, and all the greens just merged after a while. There was a couple that you could definitely tell what they were just by looking at them, because they look very different from everybody else, but there was 30 of them. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just, oh, Monty's moving the mouse. There's Monty. He's doing that. That's Monty. If you see the red dot moving, that's Monty, not me. All right. Next up is Chroma Chroma. You can tell I don't say these words much. Chroma laviolata. Ciliates, flagellates. Excuse me. I do know that one. And the other 2 right there. Those are cool. I'm jumping over here. We got animals. This one's interesting. We'll talk about him again. So what we think is the animal kingdom and the fungi kingdom came out of this supergroup, because this supergroup and everything that's in it is very animal-like and or very fungal-like. So yeah, we had a common prokaryote ancestor way. I'm not saying we came from fungus. I'm just saying we split and arose at some point and went our definitely separate ways, which is kind of fitting now that we're talking about this. And there's that, they took the video game The Last of Us and turned it into a TV show. So and all the zombies are actually, infected with fungus. That's not too much of a stretch. Fungus, as we'll learn when we hit fungus next week, they can be parasitic as all get out, and we don't really have our immune system doesn't know how to deal with them at all, period. That's the reason our best barrier against them is Monty, he just changed the thing. No, you don't get to tell me when to move on. So yeah, it's a fun, so anyway, where was I before Monty complete? What? You messed me up, man. Now I can't think straight. Right, fungus. There are fungus that actually take over insects, just like what you see in The Last of Us. That's where they kind of got the idea for it. It's actually disturbing to watch. So I might throw in some clips of that or put some links, because that is interesting. So yeah, fungi is a eukaryote just like us. It's why if it gets in our body, it's hard to kill because we are made of eukaryotes. You see, bacterial infections, because it's a prokaryote, things that kill prokaryotes don't kill eukaryotic cells, which is why we can treat them, because they're not us. But the problem with fungi is that they're just like us almost, and it's almost impossible sending in a medication. It's kind of like carpet bombing, but it also kills us. What kills us will kill them, and vice versa. So it's like, that's actually why we have nose hairs. It's why we have ear hairs. So if you ever looked in your nose and go, oh God, these nose hairs, I hate them so. Yeah, they're one of your only protections. Us making mucus, earwax, having nose hairs, ear hairs. This is our only protection from preventing fungi to get in us. Because once a fungi gets in, it ain't pretty at all. And like I said, I'll show you more of the horror story of that next week. So yeah, The Last of Us is almost something I like zombie, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, there's some zombies that make me sit there and go, yeah, that's never gonna happen. But The Last of Us hit a note that made me go, ooh, they're getting closer on what could be possible in the future. Now, is it going to be that freaky? I don't think so. But you know how it is. Right, Monty? Yes, could you stop changing the thing? All right, next up. You got euglenids down here in excavata and Gerardia. Gerardia is not fun. Trichonomas. These guys will get you sick. Sick. Another fun bunch not to mess with. Now, this one's important down here, why I left him for last. Rhizaria. These guys are extremely important to plants because these guys actually live in symbiosis on plant roots. And a lot of them live in symbiosis with plants, period. A lot of them, and algae too, the Archaeoplastidia, same thing here. A lot of algae will also hang out and live with plants and form a symbiosis between the two. So that's why these guys will come back up again when we talk about fungus and we talk about plants, because these guys definitely will pop back up because they'll live on the roots and they can break things down that plants can't. And again, the plant gets a cut and they get food from the plant as well. So it's a perfect symbiosis of how plants' roots work. Like this, it's kind of like us with the good flora in our gut, our lower intestine. You know, they help us get back, digest things that we can't, our small intestine can't, and we get a cut of the food, and they get protection, warmth, and all the feces they could ever want to eat before we release it. You know, win-win. They get things out of our poop that we can't, and they get all the poop they can eat. Yay. Hey, listen, I ain't here to tell them what to do. All right, so let's go over the supergroups a little bit more in depth, even though I've probably spilled all the beans about all of these guys already. So Archaeoplastidia, so this basically supports a hypothesis that all Archaeoplastidia are descendants of endosymbiotic relationship between a protist and a cyanobacterium. So like I said, the cyanobacterium was pretty much probably what chloroplast came from. And so these guys include the red algae and the green algae. Now we have a love-hate relationship with algae. eating algae is actually really good. We actually put algae all the time in our foods. We actually use it for a whole bunch of different deranged things. Like sometime we even make it into our toothpaste. Red algae depends. If you've heard of red algal blooms, they can unfortunately suck out all the molecular oxygen out of a pond or something, and then kill all the other organisms in there in doing that. So red algae is interesting. We actually can eat red algae. There was, I think, a farm that was growing it and then drying it out into mats and then turning it into pellets, vitamin pellets. So, hey, get your vitamins from red algae. And that's not a bad place to get them, really, honestly. They have, well, they're little guys, but they got a lot. So it was a common ancestor of these protists, that basically land plants came out of this group. So again, if you're looking at this, land plants came out of this group, boop, now we have land plants, and then the other two kingdoms, animals and fungi, popped out of there. What do you think about Monty? He's like, I'm leaving, bye. Yeah, he's trying to leave again. All right, so now red and green are unicellular, multicellular, and colonial. We mostly know them as colonial. Like right now, I literally can smell the green algae growing in the pond when the weather warms up. We haven't had a snow day, so guess we're not getting a snow day this year. Unless March can provide. What do you think, Monty? Is there going to be snow finally? Maybe this year sometime? What do you think? He doesn't know. So anyway. So, and yeah, if we went out there and, we went and caught some stuff, trust me, green algae and probably some red algae would be up in that sample in our lake pond thing. Does that have a name? Do you know if that has a name? Anyway, so amoebozoas. So again, from the name amoebozoa, you can obviously figure out that the amoebas live in this super group. And that's also where the slime molds live. These guys are just weird. Amoebas move using pseudopodia, which is false feet. They are like extensions of cytoplasm, and they reproduce via binary fission. So throwback to prokaryotes, but not a prokaryote. He's a eukaryote. And some amoeba have protective tests, and you may be going tests, but yeah, that's a term for like think of like it has a shell on it, like a snail shell. We don't usually think of amoeba like that. We think of amoeba like, the blobby things with all the little legs sticking out and all that stuff. Those living blobs that blob about. That's kind of how we think of most amoeba. But yeah, some of them have tests, which is a type of shell, which is interesting. And other amoeba are just, they don't care about wearing clothes, and they just, gonna live their lives, man. So like nature intended, naked. Anyway, so now slime molds are also weird. They act more like fungi, but they're not fungi. They have a very distinct life cycle. If you see them in your garden or on your, don't worry about them. They're not going to hurt your plants. They actually aren't that bad. They just kind of blow up and then disappear. So when the conditions get good, like I find them all the time, like you put down some fresh mulch and then you get a couple of good rains and the weather's just right. And these guys, all of a sudden it looks like, some really, really electric yellow. Or Monty, could you like not steal all my necklaces? Thank you. He's trying to leave. Will you stop that? Stop leaving. Everybody wants to see you. They said so. Anyway. So let's go ahead and go into some of these. So yeah, you can see the electric yellow of our slime mold friends right here. Like I said, they don't really hurt anything in your garden. They just don't look great, but they don't do anything bad either. So my thing is just let them do their thing and they'll dissipate in a bit. So here's an amoeba. He's amoebating. So again, he's kind of interesting. He actually kind of has a mouth, which is this sort of, technically his whole body is a mouth. So those sticky out parts are called the pseudopodium. So basically the false feet. They have food vacuoles, lots of food vacuoles. They have a nucleus. They have a contractile vacuole, which lets them shoot water out of them, so that way they can move faster a little bit. They're interesting little dudes. So anyway, as you can see, the slime mold life cycle is interesting. Like I said, they're very fungal-like, and if you look at them, you'd probably think, oh, it's a fungus. It's not. He's a protist. So you're looking at a straight protist here. So what happens is there's these spores, and the spores can give rise to two different forms. It can give amoeboid form, which is why they're in the amoeboid family or supergroup, and the flagellated form. And these guys have to fuse into a zygote. And I actually have a tiny zygote here. Yeah, just in case you think I didn't have all of these things. Here's a little zygote. It's a zygote. So anyway, so here it turns into a zygote. And then without cytokinesis, basically these guys just start building up into a huge mass called the feeding plasmodium, which is what you see. That's the part where you walk out in your garden and go, ew. And I did. I walked out and went, ew. And then I went, cool. Because I'm like that. Then it matures. And from when it matures, it will into the sporangia form. Then this is, like I said, the part that kind of makes you go, fungi, but not. So it has a growth stalks with a sporangium. And again, what happens is meiosis is happening in here. And it makes spores. And then the life cycle goes around again. So, so usually what you guys see is the feeding plasmodium that just looks like somebody went crazy and vomited all the turmeric up. But so there he is. He doesn't hurt your garden, and he might not look appeasing, but he is a lovely member of the Protist kingdom. So remember, next time you see one out in the wild, show everybody and annoy them with these facts. That's what I do. All right, next, guys. So again, these guys, the Opisternarcrunch. Again, I don't see these words all too often. I need to get better at that. Opisternarcrunch. I'll work on that. Uh-oh. Silly me. I left my Discord on. Shh. Anyway, so the flagella of other protists are anterior and their movement. So these guys are the ones that usually have a flagellum, and they have a lot of flagellas in their group. They're usually anterior, and their movement pulls the cells. So in other words, what I'm talking about is you think, because like with sperm, say, let's just use our sperm here. You think the tail always goes behind and it propels it forward with the tail behind, right? Well, these guys do it backwards. So they literally have the flagella in the front, and they're whipping the flagella actually pushes it forward. So it's in reverse of what you'd think. Dante, you can't have my cell phone. Oh my God, you're being squirrely today. Knock that off. So now the single apical flagellum is usually surrounded by a contractile collar of microvilli, which is a whole bunch of little tiny projections. And it's used to filter and collect bacteria. So these guys, so when they're going forward, so again, I'm just using this sperm I have here that, you know, they're going forward right around this area. That's the tag. They have a collar, and that's basically where they're sucking up bacteria they're eating. So they're literally going forward and scooping up any bacteria that may be, you know, have bad enough luck to be hanging out that day. And they ingest it, and then they eat it. And then so they have similar feeding in collar cells and sponges, which is a possibility that sponges came out of this group. Now that's kind of so it's interesting. They're mostly parasitic though, so please do not ingest any of these guys. They're not great for us. Rhizaria, like I said, this includes many amoebas with thin needle-like root-like pseudopodia, and these guys, like I said, they are extremely important in carbon and nitrogen fixing. So even though I made a big stink, Monty, we're not there yet. We'll talk about plankton in a minute. God, why are you so impatient? It isn't like you have anything to get to later today. Snakes. So I made a big stink last week about how excuse me, how bacteria are so crazy important in nitrogen fixing and the carbon cycle. Well, these guys are too, especially for plants. So we'll talk more about these when we talk about plants, because they like to form symbioses with plant roots. Because you'll see this word rhizaria or rhizome come back, and then you'll be like, wow, that looks familiar. It's familiar for a reason. Now, again, these guys also make tests or shells, usually made of calcium carbonate silicates. So the diatoms are usually, I think, in this group as well. Watch the next slide will completely make me a liar about that. But anyway. Oh, no, see, next slide did make me a liar. Anyway, so chromolavillata, vilolata, sounds like something you should buy at Starbucks. Anyway, a vilolata. Hey, have you had a vilolata today? Anyway, this is a big group that have flagella. Some bioluminesce, so they glow in the dark, which is cool. Some are extremely parasitic, like Plasmodium. And we'll talk about Plasmodium in a minute. He has a very complicated life cycle, and it causes malaria in humans. So he's not a fun guy, and I don't mean that as a pun for fungus. I mean, he's just a jerk. Anyway, we don't Plasmodium and us humans, no. Other things we can say, yes. These guys, no. Plankton, paramecium, diatoms, red algae, brown algae, golden algae, and water molds. So just in case you thought we were out of the mold territory, no, there's molds everywhere. So yeah, they're a very diverse group. This is a big group and lots of interesting things going on here. Like I said, if you want more in study, I would highly recommend, I believe, a microbiology course, because I believe microbiology not only hits archaea bacteria, but I believe it also dips its big toe into the protists as well. Next up, excavata. So this group is basically asymmetrical weirdos with a feeding groove on one side. This is where the euglena comes from. He's that shoe shoe print looking guy, because he has a feeding groove. A lot of these guys are heterotrophic predators, photosynthetic species, and parasites. A lot of these guys are parasites, like Giardia and trichomosis, which basically calls one of them is a sexually I can't speak today. Sexually transmitted disease in humans. Trick. Oh no, I've got the trick. It comes from these guys. So I don't have that as a plushie. I should get that. Monty, no, you can't have Ebola. He's being really, really, really wiggly today. All right, so here we go. So here you go. Here's a euglena. So you got the mouth pore, it has a anal pore. So yeah, we've finally decided, hey, here's mouth, here's a rear end. It's got the cilia all around it. And these guys are really cool to watch under a microscope. They twirl and twirl. Here's diatoms. Aren't they beautiful? I love diatoms. Here is our friend. Yeah. Where's our friend? Where's our friend? Flagella. And you can see this is up front. Here is the collar part where you can see it goes in here. So they just, whip this back and forth to go forward. And they scoop up bacteria that just happens to be in their way. Fun stuff. Water molds. So these basically are known as mildews. So water molds are mildews. So fish tank fuzz if you have fish. They're plant-like, and they're protist mold, but they also are plant-like. So again, they're these weirdos. So anything moldy, if it's moldy, it's these guys, mildew. All right. So speaking of, let's talk about Plasmodium. He who gives us malaria and we don't enjoy him. Well, he's got a really crazy, complicated life. I mean, his life cycle is nuts. So let's try to, I'm not going to expect you to memorize this for any tests or anything. I just want you to go over it with me so we can both sit there and go, holy cow, why did it have to be this crazy? So I'll move myself over here. There I am. Okay, so we've got, this is what he looks like up close. So basically what happens is, say a mosquito comes down and sucks your blood. By the way, that's female mosquitoes are the only ones that suck your blood. The males do not. The males exist just to breed with the females. They're tiny. You never really see them all that much. And it's the females that come and bite. They're the only ones that drink blood. The males do not. So it just goes to show us females are dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. Monty's like, I'm a guy. I don't know. I'm innocent and sweet. So anyway, so what happens is mosquito takes a blood meal, and when he's sucking our blood out, unfortunately the plasmodium goes in. And then it heads to a human liver cell. And there is where, remember when we talked about how viruses have that stage where they hide in the DNA? They just inject their DNA and hide it. Yeah, well, here it is. So the liver cell's infected, the plasmodium multiplies, and then the plasmodium, oh wait, this isn't entirely a virus. So anyway, the plasmodium goes in, he infects a liver cell, multiplies, then he blows up, enters the blood, and here's the blood. So this is the liver cycle. Now we're going into the blood cycle, the human blood stages. So again, he matures, goes through my it just, so it enters the blood, matures there. So he matures, then goes out the maturing stage, gametes produced by meiosis. And then he turns into a female and male version. And this is where the mosquito comes back in. Yeah, so now while our liver is getting destroyed and our blood is getting destroyed, a mosquito comes over, sucks out the blood and gets the gametes, the male and female gametes, up inside the mosquito. So now inside the mosquito, the microgametes get together, they fertilize, it turns into a zygote, go through mitosis, the parasite enters the saliva in the mosquito, and the mosquito goes and bites a human, and it starts over again. Whew. Was that not crazy complicated? That's insane. Who's got time for that? Well, obviously Plasmodia does, but anyway. Shoo. So, yeah. Fun guy, but not really. Now, protists. Why do we care? Let me move myself out of the way again. There I am. Why do we care about these weird things? Because they actually offer us so much. And we like. So basically, they produce oxygen. Remember, these guys, if they were all killed off in the ocean tomorrow, we wouldn't have enough oxygen to live. You go, oh, well, trees will make oxygen for us. Plants don't make it fast enough. These guys do. Our lungs are at the lungs of the planet is not necessarily Amazon. He's definitely a major part, but it's more the oceans. These guys produce a ton of oxygen for us, more than the plant kingdom does. So, like I said, if the oceans die tomorrow, we'd be dead right along with it. They function as producers in both freshwater and saltwater. Major component, plankton. Remember what animals eat? A lot of the big, like whales. They actually are filter feeders, and they eat nothing but plankton. So they're sucking in billions and billions and billions of these guys all day, every day. That's why they've got those baleen teeth that are like strainers. That's why they have funky teeth that don't look like teeth. They look like funky feathers. So And they're suspended in the water. They serve as food for heterotrophic protists and animals. Like I was saying, whales suck these guys up constantly. Many of them are symbiotes. A lot of them we couldn't live without. Plants literally cannot live without the rhizomes living in their roots. They wouldn't be able to get half the food out of the earth with the root systems without them. And it ranges from strict parasitism to mutualism, because obviously when we just looked at Plasmodia, and he was definitely one heck of a parasite for mosquitoes and humans. Coral reefs basically are aided by these guys, you know. So, and they're just, like I said, without them, we wouldn't be breathing. So thank you, protists. Thank you for letting us breathe, because I kind of like doing that. What do you think, Monty? Where are you? Do you like breathing? I don't think you do. You like breathing? Yes. Okay. So anyway, and we use them for a lot of different things too. Like I said, green algae, red algae. We've been definitely, they've been making a scene in the vitamin supplement area. And Discord goes off again. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there's a bazillion million things that these guys are so crazy important for. So thank you, protists. Where would we be without you? And why won't you let me click to the next thing? So again, he goes over a lot of this with the diversity. I'll probably be turning this video into a one that's interactive. And I've been working on getting the videos fixed, hopefully. Some very helpful students. You know who you are. Thank you for emailing me that information. Has shot me some screenshots and what they've noticed too. So it's helping me narrow down how to make these H5Ps better, so they're more interactive and more fun, but at the same time, they won't say fail every time you do them and then you go, why did I fail? It's so we're getting there bit by bit. Thank you for helping me figure all this out and making me a better online teacher. So anyway, with that said, that's it for Protist Kingdom Protista. Like I said, I'm not gonna, this is a weird one. It's like one you want to keep going on, but at the same time, it's also one you don't want to beat to a dead horse until it's a dead horse and then keep beating it. I completely botched that saying. So yeah. So next week we're going to talk about fungi. I also have a special video coming out for you on how to do research, because we're going to be doing a thing next week where we're going to be, maybe instead of doing a lab, we're going to do this, and where we're going to learn how to read a scientific paper together and then learn how to go find a scientific paper. I even got one of our lovely librarians here at Blue Ridge from our library to help me with doing that. So that way you guys know where to find things, because researching, finding, figuring out how to find the information, and then number two, making sure you know how to read it without losing your mind, are both extremely important. So that's what we're going to do next week, and we're going to kind of read a scientific paper together, or at least a couple of them. I'll have one, and then I'll have a second one that you guys are going to discuss in a discussion board over. That's my plan. So hopefully I'll have it all up next week. Yeah, that's my plan right now with my brain. So there. Okay. So I'll see you next week. Take it easy and take care. Bye. Say bye, Monty. Bye.